Just a quick introduction to the Revit Express Tools. They're packaged in two suites. We have the BIM Manager Suite and the BIM Project Suite. And BIM Manager Suite is for creating the company standards, and the BIM Project Suite is for the everyday Revit user. And then we also have the content packages, Superdoor Configurator, Electrical Productivity Pack, and a Healthcare Productivity Pack. In today's webinar, I'll address how to deploy these tools to your team. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff, and he'll begin the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And thanks to everybody for joining us today for the webinar. The topic of today's webinar is the deployment and administration of the Revit Express tools. So let's take a quick look at the agenda. First up, we'll work through the standard installation of the Revit Express tools. Once the installation is in place, we can examine the folders and files of note and just get familiar with the structure. From there, we'll take a look at our licensing options, including our network licensing configuration. After we've got the basics and the structure out of the way, we'll move on to deployment of the tools and how Active Directory can be leveraged for administration of the tools. Finally, we'll wrap up with an overview of our upcoming webinars and events, and then do a live question and answer session. So let's dive into the first topic, the standard installation. I define a standard installation as manually running our MSI installer on a particular workstation. This is a completely valid deployment option for smaller organizations that don't have or aren't currently utilizing any software deployment infrastructure, something like SCCM or group policy or even login scripts. Do note that our installers must be run with local administrator permissions. So let's switch windows over to a test machine that I've got here and actually just run through the installation of one of our suites. So in this machine here, we're just going to go ahead and do the manual install for Project Suite Ultimate. So I've got my installers here. These are the same installers that you would download off of our website. And so when I run the MSI, it's basically just a quick wizard run through here. So we'll just click Next, agree to our licensing, and at this point we get to choose what suite edition we would like to install. Do note the standard suite is always free. And so this is just a collection of free tools that anybody can download and use at any time. The next two suites here are our paid-for suites, so our Premium and our Ultimate. And both of these are available as a free 14-day trial. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and select Ultimate and move on with the installation. So I'll click Install, and we'll just go ahead and let the installer run its course here. All right, great. So we're done. We do have a checkbox option to read the installation and configuration guide. For anybody interested, this document goes through all of the information that we'll be covering today, and so there's some really great info buried in this document. So for any questions that maybe don't get answered in the webinar, definitely consult our installation and configuration guide. But I'm going to go ahead and uncheck to open that so that we're not opening it here, and we'll just click Finish. So at this point, we have the suite, at least the project suite, installed on this machine. So let's go ahead and take a look at the file and folder locations of note here. So there's basically two main directories that we'll be dealing with here. The main add-in folder for Autodesk Revit, which is located at C, Program Data, Autodesk, Revit, and then add-ins. And then from there, there's the various release year of Revit, and then your actual add-in files will be in there. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that in a moment. The other folder that we utilize for our Express tools is C Program Data CTC. And this is a folder that we use to stash various settings files or other support items that we need to allow our suites to run. So let's switch back over and actually look at what's in those folders. And what we're going to be looking for particularly are these four text files. These text files do the bulk of the work when it comes to administering the suites. And all of the settings in these files can be configured using the suite settings dialog within Revit. So let's toggle back over to that test machine and take a look at some of these settings files. At least locate them and then look through the suite settings from within Revit. So first of all, the add-ins folder. Here's that C Program Data Autodesk Revit add-ins folder. From here we'll go into the 2014 folder. And then now you can see our actual add-in and the suites bundle folder, which is what we've just installed by running the installation manually. So within here, we do have several files that you may care to actually deploy to users. And so those are the ribbon button visibility settings text file and the suite edition text file. So the Suite Edition was set when running through the installer. So when I chose Ultimate, I'll just cruise down here and find this. So the Suite Edition text file, open this up. So when we chose Ultimate during the installation, that's how this value got set here. The other one that we'll care to look at is our ribbon button visibility settings file. So in here, this is going to control what ribbon buttons actually become visible to the end users. So the other folder that we were going to take a look at here is the program data CTC folder. And so in here, this is where we'll store things like the suite settings, which controls whether or not the icons are using the large icons or the small icons. And then also our licensing options are in here. So in the licensing folder, we've got our project suite licensing setting, and this is going to control how our actual licensing works. But let's back up a second here, dive into the actual Revit application itself, and take a look at how we can configure these settings using suite settings. Let's go into an empty template here. All right, great. So off of the Express Tools tab here, now you can see the Project Suite Ultimate has been installed. And what we're going to do is go ahead and take a look at the Suite Settings dialog. And again, this will help you toggle the settings across those 4 text files. So first up is the ribbon button visibility. This allows you to turn certain buttons on and off. And this can be a very useful tool from an administrative standpoint because first of all, you can restrict access to various tools. So for example, anybody familiar with our BIM list product, which is our content management solution for Revit families, there is an administrative portion to that and then a browser portion. And it's usually the common way that it is set up is that a smaller number of people will have access to the BIM list admin application, and then the BIM list browser will be distributed to everybody. So only the users, only certain trusted users will have access to actually modify the BIM list database configuration. So what we might do here is for particular users, we may turn off the BIM list admin button or the project link admin that works in much the same way. Or if there's a tool that maybe you don't want users to have access to for some reason, you're able to turn that off in here as well. A common example would be something like our detail link tool, which is a very powerful tool for companies who are migrating from AutoCAD to Revit to recycle their details items. But if you are in a company that's fully Revitized all their details, perhaps you don't want people using something like this or thinking that this is a workflow that you support. So it's something that you could turn off if you wanted to. Also in here, you have the ability to toggle to use small icons. We've got quite a large number of tools now, and if you are on a lower resolution monitor, for example, if I had the Manager Suite installed here as well, one of these toolbars would become collapsed. So if I wanted to see all of my tools at the same time, I could simply check to use the small ribbon buttons. All right, the next tab here is our licensing tab, and we have several licensing options. Let's go ahead and take a look at these quick. The first is our 14-day free trial. All of our tools, with the exception of 2 tools in our Manager Suite, are fully functional for the duration of the 14 days. So we definitely invite everybody to get in and actually try out the tools before they purchase them. Below that, we've got our standalone or node-locked licensing option. So the node-locked licenses basically will activate on one particular computer and allow anybody who logs into that computer access to our tools. Then the last option here is our network floating licensing. The network floating licensing works very similar to the Autodesk floating licensing in that we will deliver you a license file, which then is used to create a license pool. And so as users open the software, they'll essentially check out licenses from the pool. So let's switch back over to our test machine here and goof around with some of our licensing options here. So we're going to click on the Change Licensing button, and the first thing that we'll do here is we'll do the standalone license activation. So in here, we'll go ahead and choose the standalone locked license option. I'm just going to go ahead and click the Register button. And what I'll need to do now is just grab my licensing data. I think I've got some sample data out here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my serial number. And the way this works is you just paste in your serial number and plug in your registered username. So when I hit OK here, this is going to go ahead and activate this license on my machine. So at this point, anybody who logs into this machine would be able to run our BIM project suite or Ultimate. One of the nice features that we've added relatively recently is the ability to unregister a node lock license. So you're able now to unregister this license and move it to a different machine if need be. So if you're going to upgrade a user, or if a user is moving from one machine to another, you can unregister the tool and then re-register it on a different machine. So the other option in here is the network licensing. Now the network licensing does require a little bit more setup on the front end for the administrators, but it provides quite a bit of flexibility once it's in place. So let's take a look at the node lock licensing and how that's going to work. So back on my desktop over here, we go ahead and run our license server info window. And this is something that's going to pop up at the end of our network license server installation. The network license software that we use is actually it's called RLM, or Reprise License Manager. The folks at RLM are actually the guys who wrote the FlexLM software that Autodesk eventually purchased. And what they did is, after they sold it to Autodesk, they waited a few years for their non-compete to run up, and then wrote an improved license manager, hence the name Reprise. But because they understood the ins and outs of the FlexLM software, the RLM software can run side by side. And in fact, many of our existing Revit Express Tool customers have opted to install their licensing on the same server that's providing their Autodesk network licensing. Gives you quite a bit of flexibility in that regard. So let's go ahead and look at how this actually gets configured. It's fairly straightforward. Once installed, we'll need to have you send over your server name and MAC address, and then we'll generate a license file for you and send that back. Once that file has been sent back, or once that information has been sent to you, you'll be able to take your license file and basically put it into the folder location that's required. So, and that location is just in wherever the license server was actually installed. So in this case, I'm doing it locally on my machine, just in Program Files, CAD Technology Center, Network License Server. So from here, we're able to go ahead and open up the Web Management Console. So all of the administration of the license server is done through this web console, which is really slick, which means also that you can access this console from any of the machines in your environment if need be. So what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and check the status. You can see that we're listed here. Let's just do a quick reread of our license file to make sure that we've got this information loaded. So we're just going to do a quick reread here. Once that's done, we'll switch back to status. And from here, we can go ahead and check our server status. And we should see, yeah. So here we've got our actual licenses have been loaded into this machine. So in this case, I've got 2 licenses available for each of my products here, the Superdoor Suite Ultimate, Project Suite Ultimate, and our Manager Suite Ultimate. So the setup for the license server is fairly straightforward. There is one other requirement. We do need several ports to be open in order for communication to function properly. And so what we're going to do is just go ahead and configure a quick firewall rule. Obviously, there are many different firewalls out there, most with different interfaces. But seeing as Windows firewall is a fairly common one, let's run through this and just configure a quick firewall rule for this environment. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Windows Firewall here. And what we need is we're just going to create a new inbound rule here. So I'll click to create a new rule. And the ports that we need open, so it'll be a port rule. The ports that we need open are 5052 through 5054. And we're going to make sure that this is a TCP rule and click Next. And we're going to make sure that we're allowing the connection as the function of this rule here. And I'll just apply it to all of my various network definitions. We'll finish. I'm just going to call this CTC Revit Express Tools. And we can go ahead and finish the configuration. So great. Now we have a new firewall rule, which is going to allow that communication to happen properly. So back in our test machine now, we'll go ahead and toggle over to the network license option. And at this point, all I need to do is supply my network license server path by name. So I'm going to plug in my laptop name here. And hit apply. And we've successfully applied our licensing changes. So at this point, we're running using the network licensing option. So to just take a slightly deeper look into how this is going to work, the really nice thing about our network licensing option is that the licenses will only be consumed when the tool is launched. So, and it's only any of the paid tools. I mentioned earlier that we have a free suite of tools, which is all of these available here in light green. Anything from this darker shade on is going to be a paid tool, and that's going to require a license. So at this point, when I launch something, we'll just grab a spreadsheet drafter here, for example. When I launch spreadsheet drafter, it's going to pull a license from my license server. So if we come back in here and take a look at the web management console, we can see on the status that one of the licenses is going to be in use. So 2 available, 1 in use. If I come back to the software here and just close out of spreadsheet drafter, there's a slight delay. I think it's maybe 30 seconds at the max. But this license, now that I've closed the tool, is going to return back to the license pool and be made available for another user. So we'll refresh and see if it's been returned. And there you can see in use is back to 0. So you don't have to close Revit. You're just able to close the tool itself, and that license will be returned to the license pool. Okay, let's toggle back over here. All right, great. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here at the next function, which is our Active Directory integration. So we've got some really nice functions to integrate with Active Directory for administrative purposes. These controls allow you to do things like control the ribbon button visibility, change the suite edition, or excuse me, restrict the ability of users to change the suite edition. They can restrict the ability to change the licensing or the borrowing of floating licenses. You can also disable the download latest and the buy it now buttons from within our various dialogues over in Revit. So a lot of these you'll be able to find here in the suite settings. So to further cruise through our suite settings dialog here, the change suite edition, this would allow you to take the installed software and change it from premium to ultimate or ultimate to premium, or basically you can just change the edition here. So once you've made your selection, you just choose save, and it's going to toggle that value in the text file that we looked at earlier. So, and again, this is something that you would be able to disable through the Active Directory controls. The About dialog here is going to have this ability to download the latest suite installer. From an administrative standpoint, if you are running testing on software before you're deploying it to end users, this is something that you probably wouldn't want people to be able to get access to, only a select group. And so the ability to hide this downloads latest suite installer is a very attractive feature. And so that's something you can do through our Active Directory controls. So to further demonstrate the Active Directory controls, I've built up several test users and groups here. So we've got our 3 test users, our Revit Express Tools admin, our power user, who's going to have more rights than our Revit Express Tools user. This will just be our average Joe. To categorize these users, I've built several security groups. So I've got the BIM list administrators group, a Revit Express Tools admin group, and then the Revit Express Tools power users group. So let's toggle back over to the test machine to take a look at how this is going to work. Oops. So we're going to close out of Revit for now. And what we need to do to activate the Active Directory controls is there is a text file that we deploy along with the software, but we don't put into position immediately. This is to allow you the flexibility to choose whether or not you'd like this function to be active or not. So The source file where we actually deploy this to is actually in the main add-ins folder. And the name of the file is going to depend on the suite that you're trying to control with Active Directory, but it's going to be either CTC BIM Project Suite settings or CTC BIM Manager Suite settings. And so what you'll need to do is take this, this text file and copy it, and we're going to put it into the suite settings location inside of our program data CTC folder. So we're just going to take that text file, and here I've got one that I've pre-configured here, so let me just copy this. And we're going to put it into our suite settings folder. So the next time we run Revit and launch our tools, the existence of this file will be recognized, and we'll start leveraging those Active Directory functions. So let's crack open this text file and take a look at how this is configured. So in here, the text file does a great job of describing how its own functionality works. So basically, you should be able to open this up and read through this document to figure out how to add the controls that you want. In this case, I've got it locked down to the point where the Express Tool admins are going to be the only ones with access to some of the admin functions. So allowing the license, allowing changing of the license settings, for example, only the Express Tools admins will be able to do that. Looks like I didn't quite finish typing this one out. So we'll say only the Express Tools power users are going to be able to borrow licenses. And actually, all of these can be comma delimited lists. So I could also add the RET admins group to this and just comma delimit this. So now anybody in either the Express Tools admins or the Express Tools power users will be able to borrow a license. So moving through, I've restricted the ability to change suite editions. We've also set up some visibility of our ribbon buttons. So in this way, we'll be able to utilize our Active Directory groups to control who sees which tools within the software. So taking a quick look through this, the Project Suite settings dialog is going to be for the RET admins only. The BIM list admins group is going to have access to BIM list admin, and everybody has access to BIM list browser, and then so on and so forth through the rest of the project suite. So let's go ahead and save this text file. I'm going to close out here, and let's go ahead and switch users because the Express Tools admin is going to have access to all of the tools. So let's change over to the power user. So we'll go ahead and log off of the Revit Express Tools admin, and we'll log in as power user. All right, great. So we're in as power user. And keep in mind those Active Directory controls, one of the really nice functions of those is that once they're in place, it doesn't matter who or which machine users log into. What matters is who's logging into that machine. So depending on the username, you'll end up with different results within the Revit interface, which is a very positive thing. So here, we're logged in as the power user, and so you can see on the ribbon, I am missing the suite settings button since that was designated for Express Tools admins only. But I can see the BIM list admin button because this user, the power user, is part of the BIM list admins group. So moving right along the ribbon, the rest of the tools here are all available. So let's take another look here. We'll go ahead and log off of power user, and we're going to log in as just the standard everyday user here. All right, great. So we're logged in as just the regular old Express Tools user. Go ahead and launch Revit and see what we've got on the ribbon here. So visiting the Revit Express Tools tab, you can see now the BIM list browser is the only option, so I've lost the ability to get at the BIM list admin. And if I go into any of the dialogues here, oops, let's try quick select here. So this quick select is actually a new tool that we've got up and coming here. So apparently I left the Buy It Now functions on, but you can see the download latest has been turned off for this user. Oh, that's the licensing options have also been controlled by the Active Directory. So let's see here. We'll take a look at next. We'll go ahead and the last thing we're going to talk about here is the deployment options. So as mentioned earlier on, all of our installers are built as MSI installers, which is really nice to integrate into various installation packages, things like SCCM or group policy. But what we'll do today is just take a look at the most basic deployment method, which is to build a login script. So we're going to build a fairly simple fairly simple batch routine that utilizes our /Q switch, which is the silent install. And along with this, we're going to need to specify the suite edition. So we'll say this is going to be an ultimate. And then also, we have the option to activate our licensing during this during the scripted install as well. So if we wanted to use the floating license server, we would just add the switch floating lick server and then the server name. Or alternatively, you could node lock activate this license. So to do that, you would just enter in name equals and then your registered username, and then SN for serial number equals and then your serial number. So let's go ahead and switch back to the test machine here and run through a scripted install. Let me just log back out and back in as the RET admin. Again, I apologize for the long load times here. Okay, so now that we're logged in, let's go ahead and take a look at the at creating an installation batch file. So in this case, let's just go ahead and build one from scratch. I do have one canned here just in case I goof something up here. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do, we'll just rename this as the RET installation batch. And we'll change the file extension to just .bat. So from here, we can go ahead and edit the batch file. And what we're going to want to do is just specify the path to the installer. So in this case, I do actually have the installers stored locally here, but you could absolutely download these and place them out on your network so that as users are running this installation script, it'll go ahead and grab the latest version from out on your network. So let me just copy this file name here, and we'll get the whole path. Copy this in. So we're going to go ahead and run this installer. And I think I can even get away with no quotes because there aren't any spaces. Great. So so the next thing is to go ahead and add our switches. So we're going to add /Q to do a silent install. Let's do suite edition equals ultimate. And let's do floating lick server equals and then my laptop name. All right. So this is pretty much all we're going to need to run this installation from the script. So what this is going to do, it's going to find the installer, run it in quiet mode. It's going to automatically set the suite edition to ultimate, and it's going to automatically pre-configure the machine to utilize our floating licensing. So I'll go ahead and save this. Close out, and let's go ahead and run this batch routine here. And we'll just let it go through its installation. It should only take a second or two here. All right, great, so it's in. So now that that's in, we can go ahead and launch Revit. But since we're at this point here, what I might point out is that what you might want to do is add to your installation batch the ability to copy things like our Active Directory configuration settings files. So if I were to copy this into the suite settings directory, this is a function that I could add to my installation batch routine. I can also push out various other settings for the applications through this installation. So from here we can go ahead and launch Revit, and at this point we should have both the Manager Suite Ultimate and the Project Suite Ultimate installed. So back to the Revit Express Tools tab. You can see because we're logged in as the RET admin, those settings files are giving us full control over all of the various functions in the suite. So suite settings are available for both suites as well as all of the tools. So that concludes the main content for the webinar today as far as the installation and configuration is concerned. I'm not going to run through anything like configuring this for group policy or for SCCM, as that tends to be fairly client specific. I do hope I remember to mention that the Active Directory groups that I had built up for deploying the various ribbon button settings and whatnot to the users would also be very useful for creating filters in something like group policy or SCCM to control which users get which buttons. So with that, we'll go ahead and run through our upcoming events. We've got RTC coming up here in June, so the 19th to the 21st in Chicago. We will have a booth out there, so we invite you to come visit us and check out the latest and greatest Express tools. And then we also have two upcoming webinars, our BIM list webinar on June 11th, and then a Revit Express Tools for Content Management webinar on June 25th. So with that, let's go ahead and move into the question and answer portion of the webinar. So I'll turn this over to Scott to read off some of the first questions that we've gotten.
Yeah, Jeff. So someone was wondering how come they're missing so many tools. I think too they were just asking, how can they make sure that they have the latest tools available?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you are missing tools that I have up on my ribbon, it may be that you're on an older suite edition, or that you may have some tools disabled by your administrator. Either one of those are reasons why you would not see all of the tools available. That said, there is kind of a sneak peek on my ribbon here, as I've got our next upcoming release of the suite installed, which includes two new tools, our length calculator and our quick select tool. So I'm not going to run through those just today, but these are the two new tools that we're introducing to our suite. We're looking to have a release for these tools within the next week or so if everything goes well. So, and then to the other question, how do I check to see if I have the latest suite installed? The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and launch one of the tools, and from the tool, click the About dialog. So in here, it's going to tell you what your installed suite edition is. So here I can see I've got 5.0.6. This is our next upcoming release. This is not currently available. But if I click on the download latest suite edition installer, it's going to go ahead and open up a link here to our website. And from here, it'll go ahead and show you what the latest suite edition available is. So obviously I've got kind of a unique situation here where things are backwards. But as soon as this new one is available, you'll see the latest version out here on the website. So that's currently the easiest way to check to make sure you're up to date.
And then another question here, is there a function to identify which computer is using a license?
So that would depend on whether or not you're utilizing the node locked or the network floating. And I assume that question was geared more towards the network floating. I believe there is a function in here to identify where the licenses are being used. So on my status, there's a license usage. And I think there's a, oh, hold on a second, maybe the wrong spot. Under the server status and then usage. So over here, and actually maybe I can just go ahead and fire up a tool so we can see. So let's go ahead and fire up Spreadsheet Drafter again. We'll pull that network license. So we'll just refresh to make sure we've got it. So here that license is in use. And if I click on usage, I can now see that the tool is in use, which user has that tool, and what the host is. So here, that's the name of my test box. So yes, absolutely, you can see which licenses are in use by which machines.
All right, and one more here, and we'll stay on the line here if any more questions come in. But this question was, we use group policy for deployment, and they may have missed something, but they were wondering if the user creation, or if they missed something about the user creation and the Active Directory.
So the group policy configuration is something that would be, again, unique to your environment. You would not need to create the users that I created. These users that I created in here were just for demonstration purposes. So while I have somebody called RET admin and RET power user, that might be Joe Architect is your RET admin, and somebody else might be a power user. These security groups that I've created are probably something that you would want to mimic in your environment, unless you've got a relevant group already that would control that. The good news is there's no cost to setting up additional security groups in Active Directory, and that's a very lightweight and easy change to make. And so what I would do is simply configure some additional security groups in Active Directory, add the appropriate users to those security groups, and then you would be able to utilize those security groups by name in the Active Directory configuration files to control who gets what access, or who gets access to which portions of the software.
All right. Well, with that, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at support@cadtechnologycenter.com and check our events page at cadtechnologycenter.com/events, and you can stay up to date on all of the latest. This video or this webinar was being recorded, and the video will be posted on our YouTube channel too. So look for the update on the email and a link to that video as well. And thank you again.